Furious Euro politicians tonight threatened to veto the Brexit deal unless Boris Johnson scraped key legislation. It came as Michel Barnier vowed to throw the brakes on the talks after a tumultuous week of wrangling over the future relationship. During private meetings with senior European figures, the Brussels bureaucrat said he was reluctant to offer Britain concessions because of a furious row over legislation that would override large swaths of the withdrawal agreement. The Frenchman was said to have lashed out at British spin after Downing Street officials claimed the European Union was softening its position, according to a source familiar with the talks. Mr. Barnier also poured cold water over next week's informal trade talks, insisting he would not budge from the bloc's hardline demands for access to the UK's coastal waters and a regulatory playing field with a role for European judges. After the downbeat debrief of the eighth negotiating round, the European Parliament announced it would veto any free trade agreement with Britain unless the government's internal market bill was scrapped. Barnier remained steadfast on the most contentious issues, a member of the EU Parliament's Brexit committee said after the meeting. He is not convinced an imminent move on the level playing field or the role of the European Court of Justice is worthwhile. The MEP added Brussels remains posed to sue Britain for its alleged breaches of the divorce treaty signed up to by Boris Johnson less than a year ago. The EU's position is the UK's internal market idea would be a breach of the UK's obligations under international law, they said. Mr. Barnier told EU 27 diplomats his visit to London had not been a huge success, a source said. The talks remained courteous but we're now coming into the weeks where both sides should be putting their cards on the table and that's not happening, a source told the Daily Express. Amid positivity in Number 10 a deal can be reached by the end of the year, European diplomats were told progress is not even being made where both sides have similar interests. The source added, that's an illusion, that's not happening. There are many technical areas where it's not that difficult to make progress but there are many things where I haven't seen signs there are progress. The European Parliament is readying plans to block any trade deal with Britain because of the government's proposed legislation that would hand ministers the power to scrap EU customs checks and state aid rules in Northern Ireland. MEP Nathalie Louiseau, a former French Europe minister, said, the EP gave its consent to the withdrawal agreement believing that it would be implemented fully and in good faith by both parties.